Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself. We're going to look back over Leinster's defeat over in Toulouse, all the other European Cup action, and of course look forward to our match against Treviso in the Pro 14 next weekend and all the other rugby news. So lads, a narrow defeat. John, you were down there in Toulouse, 29-28, but still got a losing bonus point, so not the end of the world.
28-27, but yeah, it was just as bad.
Sorry.
I wouldn't have been any happier if it was 29-28. Yeah, I just got to see it once on the telly, and the one thing that you'd miss on the telly is how offside, I suppose both sides, but mainly Toulouse were. They were offside at all, and that's how they kind of got into us. And I'm not criticising him at all for it. Barnes let them away with it, and I'm not criticising him either. He was consistent for both teams. I thought he had a pretty good game, but they were able to get right in our faces. They were spoiling our rooks, but they were also cutting off our attackers from each other. So they'd get in amongst us straight away by being just that yard. Well, let's not call it offside then. Let's call it very aggressive line speed.
Yeah, we take one.
Well, basically, you notice there was an intercept late in the game. There's an example of it. They were right up in the channels.
Somebody asked about that, and Alan Kavanagh actually on Twitter asked us about it, and I took a look at it, and the man was onside.
Oh, he may have been for that particular one.
That one was too much faffing around by the 9 at that one, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. But Toulouse had a really, really good game. They haven't played like that in years. They were really up for it, and I don't think we were expecting them to be up for it. I wouldn't say that we were maybe a percent or two off. We're a little bit complacent at the beginning, but I wouldn't kind of put Toulouse down by saying that it was all us being shit, because it wasn't really. It was them being really good that did it.
So we had some very poor defending, John.
We did, but the only thing that really set all that up was their aggression and their,
No, John, there's one ball our right winger doesn't even try to make an attempt to tackle.
Is this their first try?
Yeah, and then their second try, our fullback again didn't make an attempt to tackle. Like he was completely sidestepped.
Oh, he was sidestepped, all right.
But you shouldn't, like, I put it down to his inexperience and maybe naivety of playing fullback at that level. But, you should make those one-on-one tackles is what it wasn't like a 2-on-1 overlap. It was a guy running straight at him.
That's true, but he did step him. I would have said that, okay, Tamani has never had a great game for Leinster, particularly. I wouldn't hang everything on him either.
No,
I'd also say
just saying, like,
that
the two of the tries that we could, and the third try, our scrum half through an intercept. These things happen, of course, but
I would have thought that our fullback had a pretty good game in general. He looked pretty hungry, and he looked. Yes, he looked a bit like you would if you had Rob Kearney in that position. Loads of the stuff would not have happened due to his positioning and his nous and his all of that. Obviously, Jordan Armand he's 21, so absolutely compared to Rob Kearney in those departments, he didn't have a good game at all. But in general,
we just got used to having a very experienced fullback, for the last 10 years, and before that, we had Dempsey.
One of the best ever as well. So I wouldn't say I'd never have Larmour. That might be Larmour's position.
Of course it might, and he has to learn his position and his trade.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, in that particular game, we conceded a try that we mightn't necessarily have conceded, and I'm sure he's big enough and old enough that he'll take the criticism, or he took the criticism in the privacy of a review session, with the coaches and whatever. But like, the fact is that we aided our defeat by our inability to defend in critical moments of the match.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna dispute that, but I just thought that they had a really, really good game, and it was great. It was a great game of rugby.
Yeah,
and it was great for the competition.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
It was shit for Leinster, obviously, but in another way, was it shit for us? Good kick up the arse that we needed, rather than acres of hype saying we're the best thing in the world.
Have scraped out a win with a last second drop
we
goal,
all would.
and that would have been a kick up the arse as well.
We all would.
Without having that loss. But yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting rid of that sense of entitlement. You know, which has developed amongst. I mean, some of our support couldn't believe that we lost to Toulouse. How dare we lose to Toulouse? You know. Okay, Toulouse aren't what they once were, but every team
were on Saturday or Sunday.
Every team drops off and then rebuilds. And a club like Toulouse, with the academy it has, with the organisation of the club, it was always going to come back at some stage. Even if Saturday was or Sunday was only a slight return, they were still going to do it because that's within their DNA. But it was disappointing to lose. We did make mistakes. You can't give a team. You just can't give a team at this level a 14-point lead and then expect to canter away with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
even though we did.
That's what we did. I mean, we lost. We gave them a 14-point lead and we lost by a point because after working so hard to get it back, and I mean, in fairness, the period of play between the 20th minute and the 56th or 57th minute from Leinster, all that play was superb. It really was. It was really good play. But then we just seemed to, I don't know, we started making bad choices again.
Yeah, I mean, like
guys who never make bad choices were making bad choices.
Yeah, I mean, we had 59% possession, 58% territory. We missed 27 tackles. So did they, by the way. And then, you know,
noticeable.
Our leaders, you know, our captain, Sexton, kicked the ball away in the last minute. You know, he kicked the ball away in Paris, but he kicked it to somebody else.
Yeah.
As you say, John, there might have been mitigating factors. Maybe there was nothing on and he just was hoping that we could get up there and put pressure on them and get a penalty. I don't know. But, you know, that's something that you wouldn't see Sexton necessarily do, and I'm sure he regretted the minute the ball hit his boot. Likewise, Rhys Ruddock in their 22 kicked the ball away. I mean, you know, and these are two of the leaders on the team. You know, Rhys Ruddock's the vice captain or captain when Sexton is not available or whatever. You know, and these two guys are the ones that are supposed to be steadying the ship in a top.
Absolutely.
Not saying that they didn't after they got 14-0 down. I'm sure it was Ruddock and Sexton that were the voice of calmness and reason when they said, "Come on, we just go through our processes and, you know, get back and let's do what we normally do," and they got back into the lead. But in two critical moments, we made those two mistakes, which ultimately contributed again to the defeat. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, you go to France and you get a losing bonus point, like,
for sure.
You know,
we've won Heineken Cups built on campaigns where that was actually the tactic.
But like,
you know,
there's been only two campaigns where the teams have gone undefeated out of 23 or whatever it is. European Cups or more, maybe.
Well, there's only two campaigns that have gone with all wins. We had
that's
one.
What I mean.
We had one that was undefeated,
and Saracens.
We had a draw in it.
Okay.
In 11.
But I mean, I agree with you. It's just when you look at the team, you look what they're capable of, and you look at what they were capable of for, you know, 20, 40 minutes in the middle of the match. It's disappointing, and it's disappointing to see guys who you know are good decision makers, guys who you know won't make those mistakes 9 times out of 10. That was that 1 time out of 10, and that's something we have to look at as well. You know, every team has a dodgy one every now and again. Every team. I don't care what sport it is. I don't care what team it is. Or how dominant they are or were. Everyone throws one in like that every now and again.
Speaking of throws in, that was another area of weakness within our team, like our inability to secure our line-out ball. You know, like
we made a few dodgy, and it's not all down to the hooker by any means.
No, but the line-out didn't work. Like I don't care who throws it in,
74
I don't care who
minutes.
lifts, and I don't care who catches. Just the team, because you practice it all together, but it just didn't work.
It is a thing that sometimes comes up. I mean, we generally have, you know, a 90-odd% line out. It's just that every so often, one of them, it doesn't matter which one, it seems to be all of them, throws a stinker, and the whole issue gets brought back up again. You know, I mean, those were probably the first line outs we've lost. You know, near enough this season, certainly.
We've had a few.
But we've had
dodgy periods in games.
We've had dodgy periods in games, but they're spread over 5 years, John.
No, I meant this season.
Have we?
Yeah, we've had a few dodgy line-out periods. Even in the Wasps game, we had a few dodgy line-outs, I thought.
I don't think so.
Well, anyway, let's not...
But the thing is, it does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But yes, it is an issue. I mean, we've said it before about Tracy, and we said it about Cronin, said it about Jackman, said it about Rory Best. I have this theory that, you know, you take Jerry Flannery out of it, and maybe Shane Byrne, who are kind of freaks. Line-out throwing is not something that Irish hookers do well. They just don't. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, Cronin contributes an awful lot more to now.
Of course,
you know, some people are of the you have to do your fundamentals and basics well. I get that and I agree with that. But Cronin brings an awful lot more to the party. Some other hookers don't, though. Like, you know what I mean? They're not as dynamic. They don't act as an auxiliary back rower as both him and Strauss did back in the early teens.
Good jackler.
Absolutely, yeah. Whereas there's other more functional hookers that don't probably contribute as much around the pitch, but at the same time you do expect them to be able to do the fundamentals of their job.
Absolutely, I think it's a swings and roundabouts thing. Like, I mean, would you trade that explosiveness that Cronin has? I mean, he's not an extra back row. He's an extra centre.
Yeah.
You know, there's very few guys have that.
You have the tries, do you, Dave?
I do have the tries. Yeah.
We look at them in order, but like Cronin showed again. You know, when we saw his try that he scored last week and this week.
That was a beauty this week as well. Well, to see it.
So he's just getting back into the match.
Yeah.
That was a lovely break from Jack Cronin.
He's great.
And he just
lovely dummy there.
Yeah. He just held that ball exactly the right amount.
The Tar Arms and Tullow. So you can imagine that try was quite roundly cheered.
Yeah. But it was reminiscent of the try that he scored for the Lions. You know, he always seems to be on the shoulder.
Yeah. It's classic open.
Like it's
number 7 one, all right. Yeah.
He shows great awareness of where the ball is going to end up.
He's not exactly Keith
That's
Gleeson,
a lovely dummy.
Yeah.
Gives him an option.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was great to see, and it was just that when we needed it as well, you know. But I've been increasingly impressed with his feet, Jack Cronin's feet.
Well, Jack Cronin's feet are the thing. Like that's the most important part of his game. Well, it's not the most important part, but it's the thing that sets him aside. I mean, he's not going to burst through someone, but he's going to go around them.
If you get enough angle on someone, you can burst through the fringe of their soft shoulder or whatever. Yeah.
It's a bit of a thing, actually. I think with this team, you know, we talked about Joe Schmidt we're going to make the best passing team. This team is the team with the best footwork.
Yeah, it's up there, all right.
So we look at Cronin's try next, isn't it?
Love the way you edit these in, Dave, and without even pausing for breath.
Yes, it's very slick. It's
Ryan's try, is it?
Yeah, this was just hammer away, hammer the fuck away. We're not coming away without scoring this try, which is great to see. Leinster of old, you know, a lot of teams can hammer away like that, and Toulouse were well up for defending as well, right through the 80. Something else about Toulouse, like, do you remember watching Toulouse in the?
There's a great boost assist there from Ruddock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's huge. I mean, Ruddock's a really powerful guy. So for him to, you get two of those together.
Yeah.
Do you remember watching Toulouse in the 2012? I think it was top 14 final, and it was brutal. It was an awful shit game where they won it with penalties, I think, and it was just a horrible. This Toulouse team now seem to be back to throwing the ball around, jouer, a lot more than they have been ever since.
Well, that Toulouse team were always more of a team. That particular, like we'll say, from 2005 through 2010-ish, that Toulouse team were a brilliant team. They could play it any way you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You wanted to play it up the jumper, they'll put it up the jumper. You want to go wide, they can go wide. Like, they were a great side.
Yeah, well, they weren't able to do it in the intervening years, but they look to be getting back to it.
No, there's a lot of young players in that team.
They've kind of, and they're quite local guys as well. Yeah. And they've gone, I suppose, I'm not saying they've copied the Leinster philosophy, but they've certainly...
I think it's the other way around, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't know about that, to be honest with you. I don't know about that. I mean, that's the only way Leinster can compete, is to create their own teams from internally, from their academies. That's the only way they can do it. Can't compete financially to try and buy in players from left, right and centre like some of the French clubs do. Mm-hmm. But Toulouse have a strong academy. They've invested a lot of money that they got from getting their home quarter-finals in that academy back in the day, back in the early noughties. And, it's I suppose it just depends on the crop of kids that come through, and they've managed to harness quite a few of them now.
I think Toulouse made a mistake, actually, we'll say between 2012 and maybe 2016, 2017, that they did start going for, marquee signings and not trusting their academy. It was
like Toby Flood.
Well, not necessarily Toby Flood, but there were guys there like Luke McAllister and stuff like that. I've never gotten an ounce of whelm from watching Luke McAllister.
It's lovely legs.
Yeah, well, he should use them to walk out of. But I think they moved away from what made them great in the first place, which was maybe Toulouse always had a team of guys who came through their S-bars and the best of the surrounding clubs, players that they poached, quite frankly. But they were still all kind of local Occitan lads,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of almost kind of what happened with Munster, that the team got old together. They didn't have. They probably maybe they hadn't brought through enough of the youth, and then, like say for instance in Munster, they haven't produced until the last couple of seasons, their own centres. Like for 10 years they were buying in.
Still are.
Well, not necessarily. There's still a couple of kids coming through, but they were buying in fellas from South Africa, New Zealand, for 10 years Tonga, and those guys, they stay for 2 years, like the Casey Lalalas that stay for 2 years and then go, and there's your man the Van what's his name, the centre from South Africa, the De Villiers,
yeah.
They plug a gap for a year, but they don't bring anything. They don't leave anything sustainable within the club.
No, that's true. I mean, they still only have one centre. I mean, locally, in
Rory Scannell.
In Rory Scannell, I mean, Arnold and Farrell are both from Ulster. Taute is South African.
Dan Goggin.
Well, Dan Goggin, he's actually going to be out now for a long time. He got a bad injury.
He looked very. It was in the last. Literally the last moment of the match.
Yeah.
He was holding his leg and screaming actually.
Yeah. He's although Tommy O'Donnell doesn't have a broken ankle, which is the first ever bit of good injury news he's received in his entire career.
He's had such a hard look. And then we'll look at Cronin's final try.
You've been waiting for this one.
I have been.
Berdler. You could see his relief and pain at the same time when he finally got over for it. I think he took a few slaps on the way over, but it's just, it's typical Cronin try, really, isn't it? Burst a hole, bam, nobody's slowing him down.
Yeah, you see, and what we were doing in that, because we were spreading the ball.
He's like a little cannonball.
We weren't going wide, because we were spreading the ball. We were keeping them on their heels, which meant that they couldn't come forward in their hard press. They had to stand off, which gave Johnny the chance to play that inside ball. When we were faffing around at the back of the ruck and we were giving them a chance to come up flat on the offside, and Luke picked up the ball and had to look around for 2 seconds, then crabbed sideways, and your man came bulling through. You're going to get caught that way. This time we were keeping them back on their heels.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he is. I mean, he is. It's not just the power. It's his explosive pace. He goes from 0 to full tilt very, very quickly.
He's racking up the tries this season as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. But he's a good player. You get him involved.
Did I see he was 6? Was it 6 this season?
Could be.
Could well be.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
So look, unfortunately, Josh Van der Fleer went off. I think after 20 minutes, was it? Can't quite remember. He got a HIA. Yeah. Well, he didn't even give him a HIA because he was wobbly.
He failed it, I heard.
He didn't even take one.
Didn't even need to do stage 1. It was diagnosed on the pitch that he had a.
Yeah, he looked.
Yeah.
I mean, even we could see it from where we were, and he wasn't that far away from us. And when I saw him back on the telly, you could see the expression on his face. He wasn't quite sure where he was. I'm sure he would have said that he was holding up 17 fingers.
He presented all the classic symptoms on the pitch. They didn't even need to give him a HIA.
Correct. Yeah. So anyway, just going through some of the other results before we go back to Leinster in a little bit. Tigers beat Scarlets fairly comprehensively on Friday evening. Poor old Scarlets. That's their second defeat now this campaign.
Yeah, they're going to have to do it the hard way like they did last year. They lost the first 2 games
That's
last
right,
year.
yeah.
I was really disappointed in Scarlets. I mean, I know they were missing players, okay, and that's fair enough. But I have high expectations of Scarlets. I think they're a really good team with a deeper squad than a lot of other Welsh sides. And I was actually just a bit disappointed in them, to be honest with you. I mean, in fairness to Tigers, they flew into it. Manitou Alangi made a big difference. Big difference.
Yeah. Cast beat Exeter 29-25.
That was a very interesting game.
With 14 men.
With 14 men for most of the game. I was in the pub in Toulouse watching that and Munster, and to be fair, Munster after went down to 14 men, it wasn't such an exciting game. You kind of knew it was going to be a bonus point win, even though they made a little bit of hard work of it. Whereas the other game was much closer and therefore more exciting, so I actually watched a lot more of that, and because they were on 2 tellies on either side of the room, and I was very surprised.
Sex Jacks there.
I have them all over France. I was very surprised that that Exeter couldn't do 14 men of Cast. It was, I know they were away in France and all that, but Exeter are really under the pump now. I mean, they're bottom of that group.
Also 2 defeats.
They're bottom. Well, no, they draw. Against Munster.
Yeah, sorry.
So they're on. Is it 3 points? Yeah, I think they're on 3 points, but that puts them at the bottom of their group, which is not where we expected that Exeter to be. Like, I expected Exeter to be top of that group after 2 games. Really, not bottom. And
they're out of it as far as unless they find something and go to Thomond Park and dig something out that English teams generally don't. I think they're out of it.
And I think Munster are going to improve. I really do.
Exeter have got to host Cast at home.
Yeah.
And then they've got 2 matches against Gloucester.
Well, that'll be fairly handy. You'd
expect them to beat Gloucester because they play them.
Because they do it all the time.
Regularly. And then they travel to Munster in was that the last game of the?
Could be.
So this could be a
winner
home dinger.
takes all.
Yeah.
If
Gloucester actually looked pretty decent against Munster up until. Well, we'll talk about the game later, but up until Cipriani got sent off, and indeed for a little bit afterwards, Gloucester looked pretty decent against them.
Yeah. Well, when we move on to Munster, won 36-22 against Gloucester. I think, as you said, Cipriani getting sent off fairly early enough kind of ruined it as a spectacle.
And there have been several people pulling up other episodes in the same game which were arguably worse or almost as bad, or I've seen a couple from Munster.
Do you think it was worth a red card?
You see, that's the wrong question.
Technically, yes.
That's the wrong question.
Do you think the law is correct that you would get a red card for what happened?
No, I don't think the law is correct. But I know why they've made that law, and I think they're right to do it. But I think that I think the red card was correct under the laws. I think there were other incidents that also warranted looking at. Not just in the Munster game, in a load of games.
Probably every game.
There was one I saw where 2 Munster players hit, at least one of them hit shoulder to chin. No, I didn't. I just saw.
On 12 trees.
Was that it?
Yeah, standing on 12 trees.
Tell you what,
and there was another worse one.
Was outstanding in that game. He was playing 14 men.
Yeah,
he was the only thing.
He was the best player. He was the best.
Best player on the pitch. He was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I saw it might have even been his first game for Leicester. I don't think it was, but it was one of his first games. Leinster played Leicester in a pre-season friendly in 2010 over in Welford Road, and 12 threes played out half that day, and he was feckin' brilliant. Oh, outstanding. Best player on the pitch that day too.
But he dragged them back into that game. Like, they were getting pummeled. They could have been. Yeah. They could have. That match could easily have turned into the Leinster Wasps result and differential. And he just was so influential. Okay,
good player.
They were really, really struggling. Because they just don't have. They only had 14 lads. But not only that, that's the gulf in class in some positions was quite. It was quite stark. But he was just brilliant. Brilliant player.
Yeah, no, I thought he was outstanding. But to go back to the whole red card situation, I put forth the proposition on Twitter that what we need is something between the red and the yellow card, like a black card in GAA, but a black card plus. Because intent and recklessness, red card. But there are times when there is contact out of circumstance rather than, a guy can't get out of the way, another guy dips, or, Peter Stringer runs into Devin Toner, for want of a better two examples. Now, under the letter of the law, those are red cards. But they're not red cards of maliciousness, they're not red cards of intent, they're not red cards of recklessness. They're kind of a circumstance. So I was suggesting that a black card, like in the GAA, be brought in, but a black card that combines the 10-minute suspension of the yellow card with the player who is black carded has to be replaced. So you lose the player, right? And you have that 10-minute suspension period. But the game isn't ruined as a spectacle. But it's harsh, and it's not overly punitive. It's not overly draconian.
Well, it's just
but it's still punitive enough
rest,
to make
what? A guy gets a 10-minute rest and is replaced by another player. So
yeah, but
not that big.
Well, it is big if you lose Danny Cipriani for the rest of the match. I mean, you're
well, that's big.
The reason why you have the guys on the pitch in the first place is because they're better than the guys on the bench.
Of course.
So what you have to do is you have to have an equitable system, and I don't think the system we have at the moment is equitable. And it's, despite what people say about because it's an absolute, it's not open to interpretation, but we've seen it's open to interpretation. We saw last week, it not only is it open to interpretation, it's open to the positioning of television cameras.
Mm-hmm.
So you need something between the absolute of red and the bottling out of yellow.
Well, what about
but like if you were playing in a local club match, would that have been a red card? Purely and simply because the referee gets one view of it. Mm-hmm. There's no TV, there's no slowed down, there's no big screen not. TMO. Because I tell you, if I was playing that match, and if it happened to me, if I was the fella who was carrying the ball, I would be thinking, my God, this game is just, it's not the same that I grew up playing rugby. If that is a red card, sorry, it's shocking.
Of course, but the fact is that there's going to be a lot of players taking rugby clubs to court over the next while, and
that's you're just quoting Jerry Gilroy there now, scaremongering.
I didn't even hear Jerry Gilroy,
and I don't listen to Jerry Gilroy, and I think that's going to be the case. I mean, we live in a litigious society.
If that's the case that you're going to be taken to court for that incident,
it's not.
You might as well.
That's not the issue at all.
You might as well.
Dominic Ryan issue.
We're talking about Dominic.
Well, Dominic, no, hold on. We're talking about the incident that happened in the Munster-Gloucester match, as regards a guy is tackled and he's hit below his shoulders and Cipriani's arm moves up. In fact, Cipriani got a bang in the face, and if you see him, he recoils back.
Rugby wants to remove.
I understand
impact to the head and neck area, because it can see coming down the line the same as it's coming down the line in the NFL. Huge class action suits.
It's going to turn into where you're wearing a pair of shorts and there's a little piece of Velcro on the side, because that was not a red card.
That's reductive.
That's not a red card.
That's taking the whole situation.
Why wear boots? Why wear boots? Why play on grass? If that, just play on a PlayStation, no one will get hurt. That's the act.
No, nobody get hurt.
Are you Jordan Murphy?
No, I'm telling you, I'm from a certain generation that played the bloody sport, and I'm telling you, the game that's happening now, I'm all in favour of protecting the individual. But my God, what happened and the man getting a red card? Not a red card, lads. Not a red card.
Possibly, which is why I wanted to introduce my black card plus.
Absolutely, and also the thing about it is that it's not. Nobody is saying that anyone is going to be in court over some silly thing like what happened to Danny Cipriani. The point is that
I understand the Dominic Ryan thing, and look, I'm not.
People are going to end up in court because of concussion.
Absolutely.
And because of their careers being shortened. Nothing to do with.
And would you not say a negligence from the club?
Of course.
Well, in that particular case.
Yes, but what rugby wants to do is it wants to remove the opportunity for clubs to be negligent by lowering the tackle height.
That's the point.
That's fine, but
and the reason you do that,
some people can run into each other and clash heads.
Yeah, and that's that.
And what happens then?
100% agree entirely. Which is why my black card plus patent pending is why I suggested idea, because it shouldn't be.
I don't think you're the only one suggesting it.
No,
I've heard lots of people suggesting it.
What about a catchy name like mine?
What about something like where you take rather than fucking have 3 minutes of replays and was that a neck or was that a head? Did he intend it? Going through all that bullshit while 50,000 people are sitting there in their arse drinking beer. Why not have a black card where you can actually review the thing when the guy is off the pitch? So yes, replace him, have him off for 10 minutes, and have the TMO go ad infinitum if he needs to and see exactly what was without holding up the game, and then come to a decision during the 10-minute period and say, right, well, actually, that's a red card, or actually, that's a yellow card, or actually...
The only issue I'd have with that
bring him back on.
I can tell you the first thing they'd say was, what happens if the repeat reviews show that the guy didn't do anything wrong?
Bring him back on.
Yeah.
After the 10 minutes?
Yeah. Or even before it.
Even before.
Yeah.
Then you have Bruce Craig's trying to sue.
Yeah. Over the stadium clock. Over the stadium clock in his own stadium.
I have a suggestion from Bruce
that
Craig.
he was in.
Get better Bluetooth transmitters. The stadium clock is the stadium clock. Is the match clock. The clock on the television is just a graphical representation. It's not the actual match clock. People seem very confused. They see something on television, they think it must be the thing. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Not always, no.
It was a bit of a poor day, actually, for the EPCR.
Oh, yeah?
Because we've got... I mean, and I thought there was supposed to be, this Swiss efficiency.
Oh, yeah. I know where you're going now.
Because, obviously, we had the clock situation in Bath the previous week.
Clockgate.
And then this week, Murdo's mates from Glasgow took on Cardiff, and they wore the exact same jerseys.
Stripgate.
Stripgate.
Yeah.
So there was 30 lads in pale blue running around.
What I think the referee should have done is he should have picked one of the teams to play the match in their pants and vests, a 70s PE class.
Shirt and skins, man. That's what you wear.
Yeah.
It's
could Cardiff not have gone into the club shop and bought and requisitioned 23?
I would doubt they'd have that many large sizes in the club shop. They probably... And that point was actually made. Somebody asked that question. Your wife is watching us, so watch your language. Somebody actually made the point that the Cardiff's training centre and where their kit and all that stuff is 40 minutes away.
Okay, right.
So, I mean, it should have been all sorted out. This shouldn't be good. This should never happen. Ever happen. It's ridiculous.
If John had his way now in his litigious culture, they'd be suing them.
Hold on. Don't point the finger at me. I am no fan of litigation, mate. At all.
Fair cop, Governor. So, we've spoken about Bath. They drew with Wasps, two teams in our group. Unfortunately, they got 3 points each.
It would have been nice if they got 2. It would have been sweeter, all right. I didn't see the game, but it sounds like a bit of a thriller, 35-all.
Yeah, I didn't see it either. I was watching something else, but it does 35-all and a nice draw, and
well, it's keeping them honest. That's the only unfortunate thing.
Yeah,
so everyone is maybe they might take points off or whoever our rival's going to be later on.
Take a few points off Toulouse now, we'd be happy.
Wasps have conceded nearly 90 points in 2 matches. Bath couldn't beat a team that's conceded nearly 90 points in 2 matches. Doesn't really say a whole lot for either of them, to be perfectly honest.
Well, Toulouse looked like they were pox lucky to beat Bath last week. Only for 2 pieces of Burnsism. They were not going to win that game. So it's amazing how these things change. And Leinster went from being world beaters, top of the world, knocking Wasps after.
We should be in the Continental Shield.
After a very low perch to... Exactly. Well, that's the way sport goes, everything in life, it's very polarised.
I think people can be quite binary about things. You're either absolutely brilliant or you're absolutely crap.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you're somewhere in between.
Yeah. Well, one team that has kind of fallen down the charts a little bit is Toulon. They've lost their second match. They were beaten by high-flying Edinburgh.
That was pretty serious.
40 points to 14.
Did you see Bougelal's tweet?
No.
Bougelal
I saw that.
He tweeted a little video. It's a clip from a Disney film. It's
Snow
where
White.
Snow White is cleaning house.
Yeah.
And I'd say that he's going to be cleaning house.
Yeah. He'll have to get his culture back on track. But more impressive than that, and I saw the second half of this live. I was looking for somewhere in Toulouse, in the stadium in Toulouse, to see. There was only one place with a TV screen that was showing the match. But Newcastle and Montpellier, what an end to the game.
Unbelievable.
And it was 89 minutes. It went and
39 phases.
39 phases till it was of Munster legend level of play.
Epicness.
And
It was
serious,
epic. It was
serious
absolutely epic.
And they beat the Glamour boys of Montpellier with their little small. If you didn't know better, you'd think that somebody was trying to get Newcastle into the final because the final's in Newcastle. But no, it was really gritty and very Dean Richards win. And I was shouting at the telly by the end of it. It was a rubbish game. It was really poor before that. Like the two teams were just running into each other, and it was a fairly poor game. But that
one moment, when I say moment, that
10-minute moment
elevated it.
was
and no blood capsules.
He's learned the hard way.
Yeah, he has actually a 3-year ban for that. Simon Zebo had his old friends from Ulster over to Paris. He was quite welcoming, pointing the way for them to.
I think that I have to say I thought that Nigel was it was patently obvious that Simon was just ordering his post-match cake to go with his pre-match cake and his halftime cake.
Two desserts, or Simon, would you say?
Yeah.
Bernard Jackman would curse him out.
Yeah.
I thought Ulster were actually going to
when Simon Zebo hears conditioning, he thinks it's something to do with he thinks it's a hair product.
What I thought it was a 12-3 at one stage, and I thought, here we go. This could be a shock,
and it was also a yellow card. They scored a try during a yellow card period, so I thought, Jesus, hello. But they managed to lose the rest of the game 41-0.
Yeah. They had opportunities in that match. Ulster, right through to the end. I mean, they kept making line breaks. They just weren't following them up.
They were a shambles by the end of it.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, somebody compared them to Toulouse when Toulouse got the intercept. The way that the rest of them just poured through in support. Ulster were making line breaks, and they made 4 or 5 really good 40 or 50 meter line breaks, but support wasn't there. And support has to be there. Yeah,
well, it was there for Toulouse, as we spoke of at length.
I mean, Ulster. I mean, they are where they are. I mean, they're not as people expect them to be dreadful, and I think they're okay. I mean, they're
on the way back.
They're on the way back. They're getting a couple new players are coming through for them. Marty Moore looked really good. Like, he anchored that scrum pretty well.
Well, is it his first game back?
His first full game back, yeah. Or first game back, yeah. So there's hope there. Will Addison looks like his defence when Ulster don't have the ball, he plays like Jared Payne. His ability, he marshaled that defence really, really well, I thought.
And is he going to be a 13 moving forward? Is that his main position?
I don't know.
I don't know a lot about him.
We see where Joe picks him.
I meant for Ulster.
I don't know. We'll see where Joe picks him. I mean, he didn't bring him into the system just to give the guy a tour of fried food, like.
So Sarries beat Lyon, so they remain unbeaten.
Yeah.
Lyon languishing at the bottom of their pool. And I suppose just briefly the Cardiff-Glasgow game. Good away result for Glasgow down in Cardiff, there isn't too many, obviously, away wins this weekend, but that was one of them. Yeah,
I'm glad to be still slagged about Cardiff not turning up because we have a lot of friends over in Glasgow, so, I was glad to see Glasgow win that one.
It's good that you get someone like John.
Yeah.
So I just did a quick kind of synopsis after the first 2 rounds to see how things kind of stand as regards just breaking it down by results and matches played for the 5 different nations that are in the European Cup this year. So France have won 6 out of their 12 games, so they have 50%. Both Ireland and England have won 58% of our games now. Put the draws down has been half a game. So, and Wales 25% of their matches. Scotland have won 50% of their matches. So it's still early days to kind of do any sort of stats like that. But just interesting to see like that the French teams are only winning half their matches so far. And we're up around the same as England, 58%.
French teams always win only half their matches anyway. It's how the French league works.
That's very true. That's very, very true. So turning our attention to next weekend, we take on Treviso. they actually beat us the last time we played against them, but it was in
They did.
the RDS. It's obviously it's in Treviso this year.
First Italian team to win in the RDS, and not only that, but no French team has ever won there.
No French team has ever won in
The RDS.
Won the RDS, really?
So the Italians beat the French to a win there.
Good thing there's no French teams in the Pro 14.
Yeah, but they've been playing.
Badly.
They've been playing us quite a lot over the years in the RDS before there were Italian teams
Oh yeah.
in the Pro 14. Anyway,
What's
be that
that?
as it may, Treviso. This is a pretty serious game. Okay, they're in our conference.
We're
But-
going well.
They're going very well, but Ireland are playing Italy the following week, so it remains to be seen who will be given what players to look at.
No, good point. Actually, they'd be damn players as well.
So
If
it could be that we are given some of our players. It could be that they are given some and we're given none. It could, we really don't know till we haven't even seen a squad from Joe Schmidt yet, have we?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be named today. For some reason, I had that in my head. It was supposed to be named today. That the Autumn International squad was supposed to be named today. That is, but I haven't seen anything. The IRFU were busy today. Which
They
we'll
were.
get to
They were.
later.
We go through with that.
But I think we'd have to assume that we'll be without most of the. I mean, because there are 4 matches, so there's going to be a bigger squad,
Yeah.
and one of those matches is in the States,
And-
so there's that whole travel thing as well.
And then you've got, say, the last certainly 3 weekends from a Leinster's point of view, they've come off 3 fairly high-profile games.
Mhm.
Actually, 4 if you count the Connacht game before that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've Connacht, Munster, and the 2 European games. I can kind of see them giving some of the players
Bit of a
a
rest.
bit of a rest in those, because they've got. They're
I
going to
would
have
say-
certainly 2 of the next.
I would say the only guys that would be in Irish contention that we'll get are guys who might be either back from an injury or Joe wants to run some fitness into them. We might have Levy. We might have Sean O'Brien. Can't see us having too many
We
others.
won't have Tyke Furlong.
No,
Can't
No.
see Cronin. Can't see Toner. Ryan.
no.
No.
Conan.
Definitely
And-
not
and-
Sexton.
And very interestingly, you'd have to say with the absence of Ryan and Toner, you're going to go, oh well, we'll definitely have Scott Fardy. We might not,
We might
because
not.
we won't have Luke McGrath quite possibly. So we're going to need
And
Gibson Park and
Fergus McFadden is out. Dave Kearney is out. Barry Daly is out.
yeah,
So we're at
back
bare,
3 players.
we're
Are,
at bare bone, and Rob Kearney will be we assume unavailable. So what you'll have in terms of
I thought
back,
they said Carney and Levy were
I
all
heard
right.
some report on the
Rob
radio
Kearney.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob Kearney. It's Dave Kearney that has some sort of.
yeah, Rob Kearney will be away with Ireland. I'm saying he might be away with Ireland unless Joe wants to run some
You
time.
might run him.
I don't know. Dave Kearney is out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant. I meant
Sorry.
I meant both Kearneys would be out for varying reasons. But which leaves us in terms of back 3 with Alan Byrne, Rory O'Loughlin if he uses them there, Joe Tamani and James Lowe.
Well, this is the thing. We might need to decide between Fardy and Lowe, because there won't be. You're not going to put
I
in.
think the decision will be between Fardy and Gibson Park. Because I think James Lowe has to play. We just don't have the numbers.
Well, I think that Gibson Park has to play. So therefore you're going to have to choose between.
Well, I mean, who are you going to play fullback?
James Lowe.
Yeah, he's the only fullback he's the only guy who plays who's available who's a fullback.
Okay, so that means Fardy is out.
Now that we may have to do without Fardy. Yeah, that's it.
So
That's it.
you're looking at Ross Maloney
Nagel, maybe.
and either Nagel or Carney.
Kearney, yeah.
So there you go.
Down to skin and bones, I would say.
Yeah, sure. Get a couple of jokers in. Maybe sign some lads from Munster. Nah, we're not that desperate.
So looking at some of the other fixtures, so Kings take on Scarlets. Imagine that the Scarlets are going to come good again.
There's an article on Kings in SA Rugby News. I haven't managed to get my hands on it. I wanted to read it. It's about the internal organisation of the franchise. So I'll read that and I'll report back.
Excellent.
Good man.
So Ulster take on the Dragons. That again, you'd imagine they might steady their ship. They've had a couple of.
Is it away?
It's in Ravenhill.
Okay.
You imagine Ulster will win that.
Yeah.
They're getting some numbers back as well. Like, so
Zebre Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Gee,
Is it? Where is it?
It's in
I don't think it
Zebre.
matters.
Is that right? Mm.
Hasn't Cockrell got Edinburgh playing good rugby again?
It sure has, yeah.
Or effective rugby at least.
Yeah, no, I'm very impressed with them.
Yeah, I was just looking at the table. Like, we're on 24 points, and then Scarlets are next one down 19. But then there's 3 teams on 16: Treviso, Edinburgh, and Ulster on 16 points. So there's like a bit of a bunch there. On the other side of the other pool, you know, Munster down on 15 points in 4th place. Like, that's,
I think they're 9th overall on the combined table.
yeah, they would be not far off it, yeah. Anyway, just looking at some of the other. So Ospreys take on Connacht.
Where?
Interesting game.
Ospreys.
Ooh.
They moved that game actually to Bridgend.
Did they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a clash, I think, with the soccer or something.
Right.
Right.
Could be wrong. Enough.
Connacht have been. I mean, okay, they put out a weakened side against Sale, which disappointed me in and of itself.
I thought they were going to do that anyway. I think that they will see the Pro 14 as where they're going to concentrate on this season.
They've been a bit windy in the Pro 14 though, haven't they?
A
little bit.
Possibly. But they beat Ulster.
They sure did.
Didn't.
Oh, well. Well, I'm sure that they're looking at Ulster kind of going, well, we beat them.
That's a monkey off their back.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're in Europe. That's our goal for next season.
58-year-old monkey off their back,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Now, big game for Murdo. Munster, his team travelled to Munster this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is an interesting one.
Glasgow, I feel kind of sorry for Murdo in a way because they're an infuriating team to watch. They are so good and so crap at the same time.
Sometimes in the same game.
I mean, some of the rugby they play, I don't think any team in the Pro 14 can match them. And some of the dumb things they do, I don't think there's any team in the Pro 14 that can match them.
But like they've got the same record as us. They've got 5 wins from 6 games in the Pro 14. They're actually a point ahead of us because they've picked up an extra bonus point along the way. So I think that could be a tough game for Munster, you know, especially if they're shorn of a few of their players from Ireland.
Yeah. I don't think Munster have quite the depth.
No.
And
then you take out their few, you know, the Joey Carberrys and Ty Burns, who might be away with Ireland.
Yeah, CJ Stander, Peter Romani.
I think
Tommy O'Donnell, obviously.
I think there's a bit of depth in Glasgow there as well. There's a lot of they have a few foreign players.
Do Scotland have an extra game this in the autumn internationals? I think they play Wales, don't they?
Yes,
they're
they do.
playing
They're playing
Wales in
Wales.
Cardiff.
Yes.
Yeah, what a shit game.
In a strange choice, it has to be said. But yeah,
let's find a team we're in the Six Nations with and play them.
Yeah,
but we're doing the same, but we're doing it in Chicago.
Yeah, but we're doing it for. I mean, I suppose. I mean,
but I presume that's obviously AIG or whoever.
Oh yeah, we're getting a big bag of money
big
for it. Like,
yeah, but like they're doing it in Cardiff where
correct,
they're playing them anyway.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. They'll probably play them again in the World Cup warm up just to really piss everyone off.
And final game is the Cheetahs. Cardiff travel to the Cheetahs.
That could be an interesting one.
Is that in Europe or Africa?
Africa.
Cheetahs haven't been going well this year.
No.
I think the playing on 2 fronts has finally bitten them on the ass. And Cardiff are playing well.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Cardiff weren't playing very well when they lost to Glasgow, though.
No, in general they're playing well.
They haven't been bad, yeah. So you could see Cardiff going. Are Cardiff going in there in a 2-leg? No, they're just going down for the Cheetahs, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So you mentioned it earlier, Dave. I think about the IRFU strategic plan. I would say they've
Strat plan. 2018 to 2023.
They've in their executive summary they put in quite a fair few tough goals to try and achieve in the next 5 years. To get to semi-final of the next 2 World Cups, bearing in mind we've never got there. To have 2 or more Six Nation titles, to be ranked in the top 3 continually, and admittedly that's something that has been happening the last few years. To win 2 or more Champions Cup, to win 2 or more Pro 14 titles, and for the Sevens team to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics. So pretty much like that is a fair set of exacting standards to try and reach.
Yeah, the men's standards are very high. The women's standards are less high. They also put out their target for women's rugby.
Yeah.
Which prompted Philip Doyle, the successful coach, previous coach of the Irish women's team, to go, yeah, that's what we're doing anyway. It's not exactly a stretch.
But like, I suppose, like, just looking at, I would have said that, like, the whole thing from the women's point of view is numbers growth.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you know, they mentioned about getting 20% of participants of the sport in Ireland to be women, which is obviously very admirable.
You mean they're going to recommend sex changes for a lot of our players?
I've only skimmed the women's action plan. I haven't really had a chance to read it in depth because unfortunately work kind of gets in the way sometimes. But no, it seems sound. It's all about broadening the base of the pyramid.
But like that's
game. So you can come through and have a higher number of representative players, which I think is the right thing to do.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like I'd say I was at a blitz at the weekend. My daughter was playing for Kilmine under 10s, and you know there was probably maybe, I don't know, a couple of hundred kids out in Suetonians Rugby Club and playing in the blitz, and like very enthusiastic. All young girls playing it, and it was great to see. You know, that the sport is being taken up by a bunch of kids that are thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's about growing the base. That, I mean, there has been actually not even criticism, but there has been some comment that the 15-a-side game isn't going professional, whereas the 7-sided game is sort of professional. No, sorry, just let me finish. But I think at this point in time, with the base we have, we can't justify, I'm not even talking about support, but we can't justify really the 15s game going professional just now.
Well, I think you
if
have
we
to
widen
look,
that base,
but you
can.
You have to get participants in it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%
like,
agree.
You know, like, geez, I wish they'd have a Golden Oldies professional team. God, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like they have to be realistic about it. There's only so much money in the pot, and who's going to go and watch it? Like, it's not the most. You know, it should be participation rather than a spectator sport.
I think if you build the participation, you'll build the spectators.
Okay, cool, fair enough. But start at
the
start.
But that's my point. And that's the point. I mean, nobody's been particularly critical of the IRFU strategic plan, or of the IRFU Women in Rugby action plan. Slightly critical of the strategic plan in terms that the goals aren't exactly stretch goals. That they're quite.
Well, after their last World Cup now, they'd want,
maybe
they want to recalibrate.
Yeah, the last World Cup was a bit of a disaster, but they already recalibrated when they got rid of when they changed coach and things got a lot better. So I think there was a disappointment that more wasn't been asked of them, but the actual action plan itself seems to have been welcomed, certainly more welcomed than World Rugby's panel to decide the Women's Player of the Year was. The panel consisted of, amongst others, Sir Clive Woodward, Brian O'Driscoll, George Gregan, Augustine Pichot, Fabien Gauthier, and Maggie Alphonse. So they had one woman on the panel to decide. Now, I don't know, they may all be avid watchers of the women's game, but I doubt it.
Anyway, on that bombshell, David, thank you. Well, I mean, I just go back to the men's game. I mean, like, trying to get to say that their strategic goal is to get to the next two World Cup semi-finals, like, that is, I think that's pretty stretching the, you know, like, considering how poor we performed at the last two World Cups.
Yeah, but the thing to remember is
3 World Cups.
How poor we performed, that we didn't actually. I don't think anyone could claim in the last 2 knockout. I mean, we've never won a knockout game at the Rugby World Cup, never. Mm-hmm. We've had good coaches and bad coaches. We've had good teams and bad teams. We still never won one. I think that there was disappointment at the last 2 World Cups that we didn't win those knockout games. So I think asking for 2 semi-finals isn't actually.
So you think the minimum?
I don't think it's the minimum acceptable, but I think it's a realistic goal. 2 or more Six Nations titles, again, a realistic goal. I think over the next. What is it? The next 5 or 6?
I think
that's. Years?
I would say that's a stretch goal. I mean, again, you think back, like they've been very successful in the last 10 years, but really, what about the next 115 years? You know, where there was a handful of
I think
6
the thing
or
to
5
remember
Nations titles.
is in the last 5 years. This is a 5-year plan. In the last 5 years, we've won 3 Six Nations titles. So it is doable.
One of which was a Grand Slam.
One of which was a Grand Slam. Yeah. We are consistently ranked in the top 2 teams in the world. We are consistently in the knockout stages of European Cup. 2 or more European titles. I noticed that they kind of haven't used a specific trophy for that European titles. So I assume that they want us to win, you know, either Heineken Cups or Challenge Cups would be acceptable there, and 2 or more Pro 14 titles. I think that's all acceptable, really. There's nothing overly excessive there. I mean, they're hard goals. I mean, any of those things it's hard to do, but I don't think they're excessive.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we have any questions from viewers, Dave? Oh, the funding. Now, go on. You want to talk about this?
No, not much. No, I think it kind of hammers home where we are. I think it's. One thing that disappointed me was all the journalists were determined to make the point that 80% of the income comes from the international game, which is absolutely true.
But that's what that whole graphic is there to make the point of.
Yeah.
There's nothing really else.
It's a bit like writing a news story about a bicycle having 2 wheels. A bike is supposed to have 2 wheels. Our system is set up that 80% of our funding comes from the international game.
Yeah, but like there's a whole body of clubs in France and in England that are all losing money, that have all decided to hijack a very functioning tournament and set up with their own rules and try to make it that was going to be the most important tournament in European rugby, when clearly it isn't. The Six Nations is dominant of the rugby landscape. It's not club rugby, it's international rugby. And that graphic just proves that point. Whereas there are some people who would like to think that, oh, why don't Leinster go it on their own and give the 2 fingers to the RFU?
You see, that's a different thing entirely, because if we had a different system, that graphic would be different. We don't. This is the
well,
system
I guarantee you, if you looked at the English system, that very same thing would apply, because Twickenham has been sold out for the last 13 seasons.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with it.
So,
but the point I'm making is, if you have a different system, you will have a different. The point I was making was, it was strange to see so many journalists writing about a bicycle having 2 wheels, basically.
It's hard to break down what all the costs are either, and it suits the IRFU to have them fairly opaque.
I believe that 3.5% of the international costs are for the women's team. That's the only breakdown that they gave of the overall of the headline figures.
Well, didn't they pumped in an extra 1.5 million last season because of the World Cup?
Yeah,
which was obviously money that came from that funding.
Yeah, but that's the only breakdown beyond that level that they gave. But I mean, it's. I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone. We've always known that the international team and the Six Nations are an absolute behemoth when it comes to fundraising in Ireland.
And speaking of which, HSBC have got the sponsorship gig now. They, if you remember, NatWest were sponsoring it, or say RBS were sponsoring it for the last number of seasons. They pulled out. The Six Nations Committee kind of said to them, we want you to pay us a lot more money than you're currently paying us. They said, okay, go off into the market and have a look and see how you get on, because we think we're paying you market rate. They went out into the market, they couldn't get anything. They went back cap in hand to the RBS, and they said, oh yeah, sure, we'll rebrand it as the RBS. NatWest.
One of our sub-brands.
Yes, and they took a severe haircut on it was for 1 season. Now they've gone back out and back into the market, and they've got HSBC. They've gone for a global brand rather than just a UK based. Now I don't know. I didn't see the financials that came through on how much, these things are quite.
It seems, from what I can see, it seems to be a testing the waters on a relationship type thing. Because remember, the other property that Six Nations Rugby has is the Lions, and HSBC are quite
already in there. Yeah.
No, they're not. No, they lost.
Well, they were. Yeah.
They're quite keen to get the Lions back. So
they did 2 Lions tours.
Yeah, and they want it again. So the thinking is that this could be a toe in the water between the Six Nations and HSBC, see how it works, and then do a joint deal for the Lions and the Six Nations, and that could bring serious money in.
Yeah, because they also do the Sevens, World Sevens competition as well.
Yeah, I believe that costs them all of 75p.
Well, they do. They put a lot in it because it's obviously spread out amongst 12 different countries. I'm sure it costs a good bit to fly so many squads around.
The World Rugby gives them World Rugby does underwrite a lot of the costs because to a certain extent, a lot of the countries are poor countries. They kind of, Kenya, Fiji can't afford to be flying fellas all over the world. So World Rugby and their sponsors have to underwrite them.
Yeah. So, do we have any other comments from anyone?
We have some questions in. Michael Keogh asked us to pick the team for the match against Treviso and who's going to get game time. I think we kind of went through that. Off the top of my head, the team will be, and this is pure guesswork, Dooley, Tracy, Bent, Maloney, Carney, Doris/Murphy, Deegan, Levy/O'Brien, Gibson Park, Byrne, Ross Byrne. In the centres, we'll have Noel Reid and Rory O'Loughlin. On the wings, we'll have Joe Tamani and Adam Byrne, and at fullback, we'll have James Lowe.
That sounds believable. What about a bench?
A bench, we would have Byrne, Abdeladze, Nagel.
Might we get a Porter or
we might not. But I in case we don't, Abdeladze, Nagel, whoever doesn't make it onto the back row, what's his name, McCarthy? Nick McCarthy. Kieran McCarthy. That's Kieran McCarthy's in Coronation Street.
How would you know that?
I know many things, Jason. Nick McCarthy. What's his face? Red-haired lad. Frawley. And possibly some other back.
Whatever other fit backs.
Whoever else is alive.
Academicians.
Yeah. I reckon that'll be the team and bench.
So it's going to be quite callow anyway.
Yeah. Murdo Thompson talks about the high tackle laws. He feels sorry for Cipriani, as does Jason. And he asked the question, what's the defending player to do? You know, it's a foul play by circumstance, not by intent or maliciousness or recklessness. And he is incandescent about the refereeing at his Glasgow's game against Sarries still. And he asks, we watched Racing versus Ulster, same situation as ours, but Nigel gets informed. Oh yeah, that was one. If you remember in the Saracens versus Glasgow game, a Saracens player was in touch when he offloaded on the Saracens try.
Yeah.
In the Ulster Racing game, a TMO, I'd say, obviously saw it on the big screen when he shouldn't have done, and informed Nigel about it to come back and pull play back. So, because I don't think you're supposed to use the TMO for touch decisions. Wasn't that something that was said after the Farrago in the 2015 World Cup involving Scotland and Australia?
Yeah.
The TMOs can't be used for decisions regarding touch.
Yeah. Was that not a...
It was a knock-on into touch.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Is that what happened in our match against Wales when they used the wrong ball and then refused?
That was just a hopelessly incompetent boobo of a linesman.
He was Scottish too, I seem to remember.
It was Peter Allen, actually. I'm sorry, Peter. He's back running the line again, actually.
Brilliant. That's great news. Hopefully he'll be standing right in front of the terrace in the ODS.
It is unfortunate. We never mentioned Nigel talking to Simon.
No.
Apparently there is a new guideline for referees that they're to cut down on players acting a maggot like that. So
don't be such a punt, Simon.
I think I actually thought he handled it pretty well. Like he told him to not. He could have ruled out the try and given a penalty. It is unsportsmanlike conduct. It's a penalty offence. He could have been an absolute bollocks about it, but he wasn't.
Yeah, I think common sense reigned.
And we have a few more questions actually because I had two posts. Austin Behan asks, did Luke McGrath's performance at the weekend hurt his chance of starting for Ireland if Murray is indeed out? Yes. I think it did. I think it would have damaged it.
And I think Cooney not playing in
Paris
would have advanced his.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I'd agree with that. Yeah.
You have to think Cooney. I really like Luke McGrath as a player. I think he's a great player. And he has, he has limitations in places, but he is a super committed player, great defender, he's a lot of good things about his game. However, two big things you'd say about Cooney. One is he's been behind the pack for the last season and a bit. That's getting its ass kicked, and he's still managing to have good games. And two is that he can kick goals. So if he's, if you're in any doubt as to, like if Sexton goes down, wouldn't he be the second best kicker in the squad?
If Murray was playing, possibly Murray though.
Possibly Murray.
I thought Shanahan had a really good game for Ulster at the weekend. I don't think that.
Yeah, because he hasn't been good at all.
For a player I haven't really rated all that highly, I thought he had a really, really good game.
Took his try well.
I mean, he did. Yeah, he played well generally, but yeah, I think Luke didn't do himself any favours at all. The only thing is Joe isn't quite so. Isn't likely to base everything on just one match.
He's not quite as reactive as the rest of us.
Just mentioning scrum halves. Of course, we got the news during the week that Munster have nicked another one of our players.
Oh yes, nicked. Kieran McCarthy from Coronation Street is going to.
Yeah, it's kind of inevitable. It's a.
I don't blame him though. I mean, he's.
I don't blame him. I don't blame anyone.
I don't
really.
blame anyone for going. I absolutely don't blame anyone. I think if what can you do? He's third choice in Leinster. There's kids coming up that are pretty good players too.
We
He's
all
offered an
wondered.
opportunity that he's going to see the current Irish incumbent, and probably therefore he's just signed a fairly long term deal, 3 years. So he's going to be away with Ireland for a considerable chunk of the season. And he's going to get game time.
Yeah.
I think it's a good move for
It's a
him.
good move for him. It's a
Like,
good
it's-
move for
but
Munster.
it's
It's probably
hard-
a good move for Ireland. It's
but
not
like-
great for Leinster.
Yeah, but I know, but like, just say the pendulum swings the other way, in a couple of seasons, and we're no longer the best club team in Ireland. It could be Munster, could be Ulster, whoever. The same thing is going to happen to them, that they're going to have, because they're a winning team, they're going to have good players playing for them, and their
They'll all be
benches.
from Leinster.
Possibly, Dave. But you might see that the kids coming through are come. Hey, guess what? I can't get in at the out half berth because Joey Carberry's there. Where am I going to go? Well, Sexton's going to retire next season. I'll go to Leinster.
Yeah.
It might happen,
Could be.
Professional
Could be.
rugby players at some stage have to play. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, we've only got a certain number of berths in every.
Well, people were
Club.
always amazed how Dominic Ryan stayed at Leinster because he got very little game time, and then of course he went away. Geordie Murphy, same thing, went away probably at the wrong time in some ways, but like writing on the wall there with Doris and
Yeah, it's what I call
Deegan
it's what I call the
coming in.
squeeze.
behind.
If you're in a situation where you're behind an international and you don't have the advantage of an age gap between them,
Yeah.
then you have to go, because you're not going to wait them out. If there's only 1 or 2 years, you're not going to wait them out. It's like Felix Jones. Felix Jones, I think, is a classic example. He had
Dempsey and Carney.
he had the Ireland incumbent fullback. His predecessor is incumbent fullback. But he didn't have the years to outweight them because he was only a couple of years younger than them. But he could see behind him. I mean, there was Dave Carney and all those guys and lots of younger guys who were in the academy. So he thought, well, I'm not going anywhere here. It's just not going to happen for me. And I think that's a really good decision. I think it's the
Professional game.
decision
It's
to make.
a professional
Yeah.
game. Like
The only thing is it does highlight a flaw. I mean, my irkedness with it isn't that he's gone or he's going to Munster. It's that we now have a single point of failure in the Irish professional production line, and that single point of failure is Leinster. Because if we're the only ones turning out players, if we stop turning out players, there's no players been turned out. And if other teams don't have to turn out players because
that's the thing.
then why would they bother? So the danger to Irish rugby is that it reduces the production line.
But no, I think you're wrong there, and I'll tell you why you're wrong. Because they're not getting, with the exception of Carberry, who was, a guy that was regularly playing for Leinster in the big games, starring for Ireland, right? Everyone else that's moving are fellas that are on the verge of either making it in their career or on the verge of the Ireland team. So you've got Murphy went to Ulster. He's not necessarily a guaranteed, if everyone is fit, starter. Likewise, you've got McCarthy going down to Munster. He's our third choice.
Yeah, but that's not the point.
That's
The
not
point.
You're
The
looking
point.
at the point at the
No,
other
you're
end.
the point is that Munster are not going to be incentivized to develop players.
Of course they will, because
If
they
they're
want to
getting-
get, because they want to get fellas that are better than the. I'm not going to say, and I use the word
Advisedly.
advisedly. They don't want. I'm sure they don't want to get Leinster's cast off or second raters. I'm not calling those two lads second raters. I'm just
Non-first
using
team players.
Non-first team players, right? I'm sure that they don't want. They want to develop. They want to have their own guys coming through. But if there's no one as good coming through, and that's just life, there was a period of time where Leinster weren't producing many, or weren't producing. We had to go and we had to get.
Played out props all over the shop.
And scrum halves. We couldn't produce a scrum half for years.
I think that would be true if it was just 1 or 2 positions, but it doesn't seem to be. There are. Even today, although he kind of tried to brush over, he did make comments about this beforehand. Philip Brown made comments today that they were a bit worried about the production line down in Munster. Now, people are suggesting, why don't they use the same system as in Leinster? Because Munster is a different province. I mean, Munster has a club based game rather than a schools based game like in Leinster. So the same system that works in Leinster isn't going to work in Munster. What they do have to do is find a system that works in Munster. I mean,
yeah, but don't forget that they had a system where they based it around the club, right? And they did that for 100 years, and particularly in the last 20 years when they had a very successful provincial team up to 10 years ago or whatever it was since they last won a trophy. But before that, they were far superior than Leinster were in producing players, and they did it through the club systems. However, in those 10 years,
were they though? They produced one team,
two teams.
Because half teams.
Well, okay, but they produced a certain number of players that came through. However, what those players were, they'd all come through the club system. The club systems, for a number of reasons, but particularly in the last 10 years, we had a very, very severe recession where clubs teams that were putting out 6, 7 teams were reduced down to put, and particularly if you went down to Limerick or Cork in the turn of around 99, 2000, and sorry, 09, 10, 11, 12, around those years, if you went down for the Leinster match down to Thomond Park, that town was devastated. There was no shops open. All the young people had either emigrated to Dublin or left to go to America, the continent, or England. Like there was or Australia. There was no youth coming through. So all those people, all those kids that were playing club rugby were gone.
Yeah.
And if you go through the team sheets of the guys playing for Lansdowne, Belleville, Clontarf, a lot of Munster guys, a lot of ex-Munster guys that were contracted playing for those clubs.
First of all, I think it's a bit Dublin-centric to assume that the recession ended. It kind of didn't. The Celtic Tiger was an East Coast phenomenon. It didn't really bring too many benefits to the West Coast of Ireland. But the point still remains that they do have to start producing. They need a system. Whether it's this year or it starts producing guys in 10 years, they need to start now. Sure. I mean, this is the second time in the last 10 years that the IRFU have raised serious concerns about the production line in Munster. Ulster, again, has its issues because it's neither fish nor good red meat. It has its school system. But its school system isn't producing enough players. It has its club system, but it's not producing enough players. They have some good players coming through. They always throw 2 or 3 good players every year into the senior team, but it's not really enough.
Yeah, rewind back to 2010. You look at that team that came through that played in the combined Leinster-Ulster.
Oh, obviously,
I
watched the highlights of that game last week, funnily enough.
Most of the good players in that match were
Ulster
guys. Like there was, there was Jackson, there was Gilroy, there was
Marshall, Henderson. And Alding didn't play in that. No. Absolutely. But the thing is, you still that doesn't matter because the system has to be there for 5 years' time.
Yeah, sure.
Well, they did 5 years in the past. And the thing is, I mean, somebody put forth a statistic. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if it's right. I just saw it on Twitter that the last player to come through the Munster system to play for Ireland was Peter O'Mahony, and he made his debut for Munster in 2012.
Ireland.
His debut for Ireland in 2012.
Yeah.
That's a long time to go without producing a player.
Well, I think the criteria was the first team player.
Yeah.
The last first team player for Ireland, the first 23 player for Ireland.
That's a long way to go. I mean, when the last we produced one last week, I think. But
hold on, there's one being born just now. I'm hearing on my headset.
You look at last season, for example, like James Ryan came into the system. Okay, a bit of a fluke. Porter came into the system. Okay, a bit of a fluke. Larmour came. But when you have 3 of them, it's not a fluke. It's obviously something that's replicable. Because it's been replicated. So what you have to do is and people say, oh, you should go down. What needs to be taken is a really close look at the province and design the right system, not just impose somebody else's idea.
If you speak to somebody from Munster, they will be very critical of the academies. They still firmly believe that it should be all through the clubs, that the kids shouldn't be going into an academy and just training and not playing, that the kids should all be being generated through the clubs because that's what they firmly believe. That's where
unfortunately the gulf between when rugby went professional, there was no gulf between the AIL and provincial rugby, whereas now it's huge.
It's massive. But
it's massive because the players don't play in it.
So somebody who really knows the club game down there, and this is a couple of years ago, he said to me that Munster Rugby preferred guys coming. When guys came into the academy, Munster Rugby trusted the guys out of the school system more, because the politics in Munster Rugby were so strong that they couldn't trust that the guys coming into the Munster Academy from the clubs were there on ability rather than the political nous of their club. So that even Munster, even the absolute pinnacle of the pyramid in Munster, didn't trust what was coming into the academy because it wasn't sure whether it was based on ability or political nous. Because obviously it was a great honour for a club to have a fella get into the academy kind of thing, and clubs were jockeying to get fellas in. Now whether that's 100% accurate, I don't know, but I trust the guy in terms of what he knows about the clubs in Munster Rugby and how it's run. And whether it's still the case, I don't know, because that, as I say, that conversation was maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Right. But like, if you think back to, say, Ultan Dillane, like he grew up in Tralee, right? He played rugby for the club down there, and then, you know, he completely bypassed Munster and went to play for Connacht then.
Yeah.
You know, like, so somebody in Munster was asleep and didn't seem to recognise his talent.
You know, that happens to us all. Look, Tyke Burns didn't.
Well,
didn't
he
get
made
it
it
right.
he made it into the academy.
He got
He
got an
did.
extra year in the academy
He did.
because of injury.
He did, but we didn't see his value, or maybe his value hadn't developed until he went to the Scarlets. All of a sudden, Munster have a cracking player.
Yeah,
He came through our academy.
people develop at different rates. You
It's
know,
just-
sometimes guys
these
at
things
19 aren't ready to play professional rugby,
Yeah.
or 20 aren't ready to play professional
I mean,
rugby.
it's like your man
At
that
23 or 4, they might be.
it's like your man that he's the co-host of Sky Sports GAA. He played
Brian
rugby
Carney.
league. Brian Carney, like, do you know what I mean? He was languishing on Lansdowne's thirds, and just decided to give rugby league a go. Like, obviously, had never watched a bit of it on telly, but had never.
And became a legend of the sport,
Well, he
Jason.
did. He went
He
down
did,
to play
yeah.
NRL. He played for.
He was top try scorer for
you
the
know,
Newcastle Knights that year.
Like, that's
Before he
a
retired.
big deal. Like that
Not
he
going
did.
back to rugby union at all. No. Sorry.
But it's a big deal what he did.
Oh, it was. I mean, he was one of the best. At the time, he was the best winger in the world, maybe, except for maybe whoever was playing for Australia. But he's certainly the best in England.
Yeah.
And he went to Australia and he proved it by being top
But the
try
point
scorer
is,
in the NRL.
but the point is that
The
he
hardest
was
league.
that he was a guy that was missed out. I mean, Leinster missed him out. He was, you know, Lansdowne missed him out, and he went on. And someone took a chance on him. Someone took a chance on Ty Byrne because he was cheap.
Eddie
He was willing
O'Sullivan
to
took
play.
a chance on him.
People forget the rugby league and rugby union are different games. When he came back to rugby union, sorry, just to go back to Brian Carney.
That played for Ireland, yeah.
Yeah, he
So he must have been poor if he played for Ireland.
So he was definitely as good as Anthony Horgan.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
or Simon Gagan.
Yeah, or Anthony Horgan.
Or Simon Gagan.
Or
Go on.
Anthony Horgan. Do you think he was a good rugby union player?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think he was. I think his standard at rugby union was Lansdowne thirds. As rugby league, he's
Really?
brilliant. They're different games.
He played. So he played rugby for Ireland and he played rugby for Munster. He was in a squad that won a
How
European
often
Cup.
did Munster actually pick him?
Well, he was injured quite a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, boys, as ever, thanks a million. We went rambled on a bit there, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.